As the title implies, this will be a journey through lost civilizations, especially some of the most mysterious cultures and civilizations in history. But as we descend, we will also discuss notable kingdoms and faraway lands mentioned in ancient writings, whose locations remain unknown. So now, grab a coffee and also a grain of salt, because in the final level we're going to explore what is legend, and perhaps a little bit historical at the same time. The Kingdom of Sealand. Yes, I'm tired of being seated and I am disguised as a Greek because it was the cheapest costume I could afford. The Kingdom of Sealand, known in its Akkadian tongue as Tamti, was a marshy region in the southeast of Iraq, right where the Tigris and Euphrates crossed to form a new river near the Persian Gulf, and around 1730 before Christ, during a period when Babylon weakened under the rule of Shamshu-Iluna, son of Hammurabi, this territory managed to become independent under a local dynasty with Sumerian names, though they actually spoke Akkadian, becoming the last kingdom with partially Sumerian culture, still using Sumerian titles, worshipping the Sumerian god Enlil, and even building him a temple. Its economy was based on fishing, marshlands, and date palm forests, an ecosystem that was difficult to control but highly valuable, although no major urban center has been definitely attributed to it. Its geopolitical influence was significant, serving as a strategic trade point between Old Babylon and other coastal regions reached through the Persian Gulf, generating a lasting truce between Babylon and Sealand. If you don't attack me, I will let you trade through the Persian Gulf. But the most intriguing aspect of Tamti is the lack of extensive archaeological sources that tell us what its internal organization looked like. The sources we have are mostly Assyrian and Babylonian documents mentioning its kings and communities, but lacking a clear description of the cities or the architecture. It's not completely clear who these men of Sealand that they mentioned all the time really were, whether they were their own ethnic group, a set of marshland tribes, or serious rivals with imperial ambitions. Their fate is also blurry, although they appear in king lists and chronicles. Their decline around 1460 BC is poorly documented, and their absorption into Kassite Babylon through the force of the general Ulamburiash was documented but not in a detailed way. These, combined with 3 centuries of independence, makes Tamti one of the most enigmatic yet remarkable kingdoms of the ancient world. The Etruscans flourished between the 8th and 3rd centuries BC in what is now Tuscany and parts of Umbria and Lazio in Italy. They built walled cities, temples, monumental necropolises, and developed a refined art, especially in pottery, metalwork, and mural painting. Their society was organized into independent city-states, with a complex political system that included magistracies and councils. They were major traders on their time, and their culture profoundly influenced Rome, from religion to engineering and urban planning, to the point that the latter looked up at the Etruscans with respect. There are many questions about them. The language, although partially deciphered, is not fully understood, making it difficult to uncover the full history. Nor are we completely certain about their origins, whether they were native to Italy or migrants from Asia, as Herodotus proposed, but when he used the word Asia, he was referring specifically to pre-Hellenic Anatolia, because he thought that the Etruscans were a continuation of the kingdom of Lydia from Anatolia, but the scholarly consensus is that they mainly evolved locally, emerging from the indigenous Villanovan culture in central Italy during the early Iron Age. So yeah, they probably did have Anatolian blood, like all Europeans, especially in the south, but that doesn't mean that they migrated more recently. Furthermore, their disappearance as a dominant culture after the Roman expansion raises questions about how such an influential civilization became integrated and lost its identity without leaving a clear or sufficiently large written corpus to decipher. The combination of art, power, and linguistic secrets makes the Etruscans one of the most enigmatic civilizations of the ancient world. The Jomon culture developed in prehistoric Japan, becoming the first to produce decorated pottery in the world. long before they practiced agriculture. And when I say long before, I mean almost 10 millenniums before doing so, showing how technological patterns can vary wildly from one culture to another. Their economy combined hunting, fishing, gathering, and early agriculture from around 4000 BC. Their settlements show organization, and their figurines and tools reflect a surprisingly rich cultural level for an unstate society. Jomon pottery is also notable for its complexity and regional diversity, displaying a unique artistic style that evolved over millennia and on different regions. However, it is strange how they maintained prosperity for thousands of years without forming centralized states or developing writing, although the main reasons seem to be low population density, less competition, and a rich ecosystem. Many aspects of their social and cultural life remain hidden, leaving archaeologists with a lot of questions about how prehistoric Japanese lived. And last but not least, the modern Japanese people are proud of their Jomon heritage, and understandably so, to the point that you can see some of the callbacks in works of art such as the Legend of Zelda video games, because some of their designs are clearly inspired by some of the Jomon pottery, and you can also see it in some mangas and even in architecture. The Castro culture, and this is giving me a little bit of PTSD, developed in the northwest of the Iberian Peninsula, mainly Galicia and Asturias, between the 9th century BC and the 5th century AD, being a Celtic culture. Their fortified settlements, known as castrum, which means fortification or fort in Latin, show a defensive urban planning, circular dwellings, and agriculture adapted to hillsides and river valleys. They organize themselves into autonomous communities that manage their resources. The archaeological finds include pottery, iron tools, and personal ornaments, revealing an advanced material culture. But we don't know how they structured political hierarchies, nor how they coordinated between neighboring castros. Many aspects of daily life remain unknown, and the arrival of Rome, as you can imagine, erased much of the evidence. The interpretation of their archaeological remains leave major questions about their cultural cohesions and interactions with other peoples of the peninsula, such as the other Celtiberians. St. Maturbino was a Bronze Age cultural phenomenon that developed across northern Eurasia and was responsible for the spread of bronze weapons and tools across Siberia, Kazakhstan, parts of Mongolia and Eastern Europe. And the spread was not only wide but also fast, showing advanced skills in metallurgy, trade and especially transport, connecting regions that seem distant from one another even today. Its technical impact on the Bronze Age is significant, as their bronze was particularly high on tin, an exceptional quality for their time in the entire world. But these populations are far too ancient to be well understood. It's not even known how they achieved such diffusion without centralized states or identifiable cities. Many finds about them appear isolated, and their sudden disappearance raises questions about conflicts, migrations, or climatic changes that remain unresolved. Even so, these cultures strongly influenced the Yeniseian peoples, Proto-Altai groups, and Eastern Europe with their advanced metallurgy, and it indirectly contributed to the advanced metallurgy achieved by many Bronze Age cultures after them. Goguryeo was one of the three kingdoms of ancient Korea, the largest of them at some point, as it is evident on this map. It extended into southern Manchuria and, at its territorial peak, into the east of Russia, standing out for its military power, fortified architecture, and artistic development. Its society was organized into centralized kingdoms with military and political elites, and its traditions influenced later Korean states, consolidating national identity and helping to spread Korean culture. Equipped with lamella, armor, heavy cavalry, and professional archers, they defeated the Chinese Wei and Sui dynasty, striking the Sui so hard that they contributed to their collapse. Unfortunately, much of its history was destroyed or lost, and many reconstructions depend on Chinese chronicles. Its internal political structure, the location of many cities, its rituals and customs are still debated. After Goguryeo fell in 668 to an alliance of another Korean kingdom, the Silla, and the Chinese Tang dynasty, many of its elites migrated to Japan, taking with them valuable knowledge, such as a more advanced lamellar armor, some of the emblematic helmet styles later seen in some of the samurai, advanced fortification techniques that became the standard for the Japanese, and mounted archery, as well as notable elements of their architecture, especially temple architecture, influencing Japanese temples and religious complexes, leaving a deep cultural legacy in Japan and East Asia. Sadly, their late capital Pyongyang and their enormous historical legacy remain hidden behind the wall of the Democratic Republic. According to the texts of pharaonic Egypt, the land of Punt was a trading partner of Egypt from the Old Kingdom to the New Kingdom, known today as the Land of the Gods because of how much the Egyptians spoke of its wealth and exotic products. Egypt imported gold, incense, myrrh, ebony, exotic animals, and even perfumes from them. The expeditions to Punt were considered epic feats of the pharaohs and appear in reliefs such as those of the Queen Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari, showing ships filled with treasures and unique goods. Punt is believed to have had sophisticated trade and active diplomacy, connecting the African coast with Egypt through river and maritime routes, and the mystery of Punt lies in its precise location, still debated. Somalia, Eritrea, other parts of the Horn of Africa, and even parts of Arabia have been proposed, but no definitive archaeological cities are known, nor is its political organization understood, making it a fascinating lost kingdom that reminds us how limited our understanding of ancient trade and power still is. Magan was one of the kingdoms mentioned in Sumerian and Akkadian writings from the time of Sargon of Akkad. In the case of Magan, it was a crucial supplier of copper and other minerals for them too. In texts from the period, it appears as an ally and strategic sources of raw materials during some periods, but in other times, Akkadian leaders like Naram Sin, Sargon's descendant, claimed to have subjugated Magan during his reign, so they don't seem to have had a consistently good relationship. Its society must have possessed advanced skills in navigation and mining, as their vessels transported large quantities of metal and other goods across the Persian Gulf. This trade route allowed the Sumerians and Akkadians to develop more advanced metallurgy, so Magan seems to have played a fundamental role in the metallurgical development of the Middle Eastern Bronze Age, because it is a little bit more difficult to have a Bronze Age if you don't have copper, am I right? Its location is associated with Oman and southeastern Arabia, but no city, fortress or administrative center has been found to corroborate the Mesopotamian texts, and this mystery makes it an intriguing example of a lost Bronze Age civilization. Meluhha was another one of those important trade allies that the Sumerians and Akkadians mentioned quite frequently. In this case, it was a distant region that supplied gemstones, metals, textiles, wood, shells, exotic products, and even luxury goods. It has still not been conclusively identified whether Meluhha was a nation or merely a city. Most of hypotheses suggest it was the Indus Valley civilization, also called Harappa or Mohenjo-Daro, which featured architecture, city planning, and drainage systems, indicating an advanced organization rivaling any contemporary civilization, being literally the third fully developed civilization in human history. However, it could also have been another region rich in exotic resources, such as Baluchistan, parts of Pakistan and Afghanistan, like the Bactria-Marjana civilization, another Indo-Aryan culture, or even a broader trade zone. This makes Meluhha a fascinating lost culture, and a key piece in understanding Bronze Age trade. Tartaria is an archaeological site in Transylvania, in Romania, and it has absolutely nothing to do with the Central Asian Tartaria. That one is like 50% pseudoscience and 50% Russian nationalism. The Romanian Tartaria, however, is mainly known for the remains of the late Neolithic and Chalcolithic cultures. It is famous for the Tartaria tablets, dating back to around 5000 BC, small tablets with symbols that possibly represent the first known proto-writing in all of Europe, indicating a very advanced cultural development for the time. The region shows signs of organized architecture, tombs and complex settlements, suggesting a structured society with ritual practices and local trade. It has not been confirmed whether their system of symbols was truly a proto-writing system or merely ritual symbols, nor is the extent of the culture, its language, or its political organization known. Additionally, Tartaria's relationship with other contemporary cultures of Eastern Europe, such as the Vinca culture, part of what is known as Old Europe, remains a subject of debate. Jiroft is an archaeological site in southeastern Iran, which reveals remains of a Bronze Age production, with decorated pottery, stone seals and jade objects. It is believed to have been an important urban and commercial center, connecting Sumer with regions of South Asia. Its artistic and manufacturing level is impressive, showing casting techniques, stonework, advanced artistic symbolism, and quite unique and beautiful pottery. But unfortunately, neither its ancient name nor the extent of their territorial influence is known. It is debated whether it represented an organized state or multiple interconnected communities. Its system of symbols was based on geometric figures, making it quite unique. Imagine your language being something like square, rectangle, circle, circle, rectangle, square. Never in my life have I seen anything like it. But as a communication system, it really doesn't seem to have been that advanced. It has been popularly linked to the myth of Emmerka and the Lord of Arata, being one of the known locations that best fit the description of this kingdom, and many of the most important findings have not been fully analyzed yet, making Jiroft and its archaeology a work in progress. Marhashi was the third one of those kingdoms mentioned in Sumerian and Akkadian texts that we still don't know exactly where they were, probably located in southeastern Iran, maybe near present-day Baluchistan, or even near Jiroft, the one that I mentioned earlier. It is described as a supplier of metals and a participant in trade networks with Sumeria and Akkad, suggesting that its inhabitants had advanced knowledge of mining and seasonal navigation. Its government was probably centralized, but the details are not well known. No archaeological site has been identified that matches what the texts describe, but it is known that they participated in military conflicts with Akkad and Elam, although their military organization remains a mystery. The mix of notable historical references and the absence of material evidence make Marhashi a mysterious military state of the ancient world. Yam, spelled with an M, appears in Egyptian and Mesopotamian texts as a distant region rich in gold and exotic resources, but of course, with an uncertain location. Most of researchers place it in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly Ethiopia or southern Sudan, although there is no definitive archaeological evidence. It was known for trading with Egypt and Nubia, and it seems to have been perceived as a powerful and mysterious territory, often associated with wealth and trade routes. Its political organization, main cities, or even its size and population are unknown. No archaeological evidence has been found to confirm the trade routes mentioned in the text. Egyptian expeditions to Yam suggest that its influence was significant, but to what extent it governed extensive territories remains unclear. The combination of varied records and the almost total lack of physical traces makes Yam an almost ghostly and fascinating kingdom of the ancient world. The Thamud were a pre-Islamic Arab culture mentioned in the Quran as a powerful and prosperous people, capable of building houses and cities carved into rock, but who were destroyed by divine punishment due to their arrogance, disobedience, and I assume idol worship. They are described as advanced not only in architecture but also in agriculture and social organization, having a structured system capable of controlling desert trade routes. They are also depicted as a people who worshipped idols and local gods before the arrival of the prophet Saleh, sorry about the pronunciation of that word, sent to warn them and prevent their fate. But as you can imagine, they did not pay much attention to that warning. Archaeological evidence suggests that communities did exist in the region, mainly in the northwest of the Arabian Peninsula, in what is today the zone between northern Saudi Arabia and southern Jordan, with dwellings carved into cliffs and oases, which correspond to the description of the Quran. However, their political organization, language, customs, and the extent of their territories remains a mystery. Their disappearance is believed to have been caused by migrations, internal conflicts, climatic changes such as desertification, or even a combination of these factors. We know that they existed and left material traces, but much of their culture and history remains shrouded in mystery, making them one of the most interesting cultures of pre-Islamic Arabia, and one that I would genuinely love for us to learn more about. Ophir is mentioned in the Bible and in Egyptian texts as a land of gold, precious stones and exotic spices. It is believed that it could have been located somewhere in East Africa, Somalia, Eritrea or Yemen, although its location remains a mystery. It was known as a trade partner in luxury goods, with indirect links to Egypt and Mesopotamia. And of course, there is much that we don't know about them, otherwise it wouldn't be so far down the iceberg, would it? No cities, writing material remains or anything else are known about them. Its culture, language and organization? No idea. Historians also disagree on the actual scale of its wealth or influence, or whether it was simply exaggerated, but there is no consensus. Ophir illustrates how civilizations can thrive without leaving a legacy beyond fame or the fueling of centuries of speculation and myths. Duma or Duma, I have no idea, is mentioned in biblical and Assyrian texts as a territory located in northern Arabia or Jordan. They are the oases that connected the Levant with the interior of the Arabian Peninsula and Mesopotamia. Its importance seems to have been linked to caravan trade routes, through which incense, spices, metals and other valuable goods were transported, making it a strategic point for transit and control of desert routes. The text describes its inhabitants as skilled traders and defenders of their property, capable of maintaining caravan security against rival nomadic peoples, so they were no defenseless culture after all. To this day, no conclusive archaeological site has been identified to confirm its location, size or territorial extent. Practically all information about them comes from external references, particularly biblical and Assyrian sources, especially inscriptions of the latter, mentioning military campaigns or tributes related to them. Some archaeologists believe that Duma might have been more of a group of fortified oases rather than a centralized kingdom, where trade and management of water resources were key to survival, and they were referred to as a kingdom under a single name for the sake of generalization and simplification. This combination of historical references from different sources and the absence of material evidence makes Duma an enigma that still challenges modern research. Here come the heavyweights. These are literally legends that might have a tiny bit of historical basis, but yeah, you're going to need a grain of salt for this one. Let's start with Arata. Arata! Only the OGs of the channel know why I pronounce it like that. It's a kingdom mentioned in Sumerian texts as a remote place rich in mineral resources, especially precious metals, fine stones, and even lapis lazuli. Literary sources, particularly the legend of Enmerkar and the Lord of Arata, as well as the hymn of Lugalbanda, describe it as a center of trade and sophisticated culture, capable of rivaling Uruk. And we're talking about a period between 3000 and 2300 BC, plausibly, when Uruk was one of the most important powers in the world. Its physical existence, of course, has not been confirmed archaeologically, which generates debates over whether Arata was a real place or a literary construct meant to exemplify the wealth and power of Sumer. But if it were inspired by a real place, The main hypotheses are in areas of Iran, eastern Iraq, or even the mountains of Azerbaijan, with one of the most plausible being the proto-civilization of Europe, the one I mentioned earlier, and another possibility being the Oxus civilization, also called Bactria Margiana. The ambiguity regarding its language and populations raises further questions, although some archaeologists believe there may have been a real kingdom or city that inspired the texts. The lack of tangible evidence keeps it firmly in the realm of legend. The mix of references in epic literature and possible historical basis makes Arata a legendary civilization, but with a shadow of possible reality, and it seems to have been the first, if not one of the first, legendary kingdoms or cities ever mentioned, predating Atlantis, Hyperborea, Agatha, and others. Zerzura is the name given to a city or oasis in the Sahara Desert, mentioned in late medieval Arabic texts and European explorations of the 19th century. It is described as a lost, inaccessible paradise with unimaginable riches and mysterious inhabitants. Accounts suggest it may have served as a refuge for fugitives or traders. Surrounded by dunes and difficult to reach, this contributes to its myth of inaccessibility and magical protection. The debate about its real existence focuses on whether explorers actually reached a real place, or if the stories are fantasies derived from oral tales about lost oases. Some archaeologists have attempted to correlate possible locations with ancient sites, but there is no consensus. Zerzura is an example of how literature and legends can transform a possibly partial reality into a full-blown myth, and for this reason it remains a fascinating example of a legendary civilization, probably a real oasis or settlement shrouded in centuries of legend, or perhaps just the hallucinations of someone in the harsh Sahara Desert. Kitesh is a Russian city mentioned in legends, supposedly submerged in Lake Svetloya, and according to traditions of the early modern era, it was a miraculous protection against an invasion of the Mongol Empire. Its myth is part of Russian Orthodox tradition and was popularized in 19th century literature and opera. The legend says that only the pure of heart can see Kitesh, and its physical disappearance makes it a spiritual and legendary symbol rather than a verifiable location. Some historians believe the story of Kitesh could be based on a real city, destroyed by invasions such as the Mongols or by natural disasters, giving a historical core to a legend and turning a real event into something greatly exaggerated. Thus, Kitesh blends myth, spiritual symbolism, and nationalism, serving as a paradigmatic example of a dubious civilization, with one foot in legend and the other one in possible historical facts. Aztlan was the mythical place of origin of the Mexica, the leaders of the Aztec Empire, according to their chronicles. It is described as an island or region in northern Mesoamerica, rich in culture and spirituality, from which the Mexica migrated, guided by their god Huitzilopochtli, to found the city of Tenochtitlan. I am so proud I pronounced that right. However, its real geographical existence has never been confirmed. Some archaeologists suggest possible locations, such as the coastal areas of Nayarit and Sinaloa, the lake regions of Durango and Zacatecas, as well as desert regions in Sonora. Other researchers have proposed that Aztlan might have been inspired by places further north, such as the areas near the Colorado River Delta, parts of southern Utah, or even the region around the Gila River in Arizona, although these are less likely. These hypotheses are based on linguistic coincidences, migration routes recorded in codices, and parallels in oral tradition, but none have been fully confirmed. Aztlan represents the collective memory of the Mexica, their migrations, traditions, and social organization, but lacks direct archaeological evidence. Some researchers consider that Aztlan could have been a group of villages or a real state that inspired the myth, while others see it as a cultural symbol, legitimizing the authority of the Mexica. Aztlan is, therefore, a mysterious legendary location with possible real foundations. And now that I've finished saying all that, Sorry if I mispronounced any of the words. Aryavarta, according to Indian tradition, is the name given in Vedic texts to the land of the Aryans, an idealized space where the communities that compose the Rig Veda and other sacred texts are believed to have lived. In general terms, it is associated with the plains of northern and central India, especially the area between the Indus, the Ganges, and their tributaries, regions where Indo-Aryan cultures indeed flourished. It coincides with areas archaeologically linked to early Indo-Aryan populations of the 2nd millennium BC, agricultural settlements, and ritual centers that laid the foundations of classical Indian civilization. Because of this, Aryavarta is often seen as a real geographical reference, reflecting the area where the first Vedic political, ritual, and social institutions emerged. However, it also functions as a cultural and ideological concept rather than a fixed territory, as it describes a pure land, governed by the Dharma and associated with ritual righteousness. Therefore, its definition could vary depending on the period or author, and the texts do not describe precise boundaries or specific cities, introducing a halo of ambiguity about whether it was described in a real or mythical place. In that sense, Aryavarta actually expresses a religious and moral ideal, rather than a verifiable geography. It thus remains a bridge between history, identity, and religion. Civitasauria, the city of gold in Latin, appears in modern era writings referencing European medieval accounts as a remote and extraordinarily rich place, filled with unimaginable treasures. Chronicles of the time spoke of markets where gold flowed almost like water, and of a people so advanced that they seemed to touch the divine. Some accounts even mention temples covered in solid gold, and a social organization that combined trade, spirituality, and political power in a surprisingly sophisticated manner for the period. Although these accounts sound fantastical, historians believe that Civitasauria could have been a real basis. African cities of the Sahel, such as Timbuktu, Gao, or commercial centers of the old Mali Empire, under leaders like Mansa Musa, who at one point was the richest man in human history, especially in terms of gold. Like, the amount of gold mined by these people was unbelievable. And of course, that place was famous for its immense gold wealth and trans-Saharan trade. It is very likely that the exaggerated stories of European travelers visiting these places transformed those wealthy locations into a myth of a city that had a river of gold, blending historical memory with imagination, which over time, by the modern era, would have been way more exaggerated than it was initially told. The fact that these stories persisted for centuries and inspired subsequent explorations and even more exaggerated legends demonstrates the power of human imagination and our fascination for wealth and splendor. Thus, it is probably a myth, partially based on reality, but its true meaning remains shrouded in sun, time, and myths about gold. The fascination with the city continues, reminding us of the incredible imaginative capacity of the human being. Traversing the most unknown corners of history, we find cultures that challenge our reach, peoples who inhabited remote lands, whose names survive only in fragments of ancient texts or oral traditions. Some, like the last remnants of Sumerian culture in southern Sumer, the distant Japanese Jomon settlements, or the intricate castros of Galicia, show us impressive societies, yet their lives, languages, and histories remain shrouded in mystery. Others, like the enigmatic territories of Punt, Magan, Marhashi, or Yam, managed to flourish and prosper without leaving any trace beyond what was mentioned by others. And setting aside the strictly historical, legends offer a final layer of enigma. Arata, Zerzura, Kitesh, Aztlan, Aryavarta, Civitasauria, names that could be based on something real, but completely mixed with fantasy and exaggeration. Testimonies of cultures that inspired dreams, explorations, nationalism, but they did not survive long enough archaeologically. And looking back, these civilizations and kingdoms teach us that history is not always certainty, but a work in progress, a puzzle that still needs to be completed. Well, thank you very much for watching. Only one part of the iceberg remains and it will come soon in just a few weeks. I promise. It has been a pleasure. As always. So, time to edit all that. God damn!